right. Well, thank you so much for joining our session this afternoon. Today, we're going to be talking about, we're going to be saying farewell to the travel manager, yeah? And hello to the microservices engineer. Is that what we're doing today? We're going to talk about it anyway. We have a great panel, and I'm going to let you introduce yourselves, starting with Katharina. Let's get settled and find a seat. Katharina, why don't you tell us a little bit about you and your stake in this topic?
Yes, hi, Katharina Navarro. I'm the Global Category Manager, Travel and Meetings for Capgemini. Capgemini is a global consulting company. So we've been in travel for quite some time, including all the different frustrations we've gone through to our industry, even before COVID. So we didn't need this crisis to be busy. But I think it's added one additional layer on top of us really gaining back control of the ecosystem that we provide our travelers, making sure we remove some of the complexity that's inherent to our industry, make it simple, easy, straightforward to the traveler to use our systems and tools and take back control over what we present our employees with.
Great, thank you so much. Johnny Thorson, I think it was in 2017, was it? An Innovate, the BTN Innovate conference in New York. You gave an entire keynote speech about microservices and the evolution towards that. Tell us who you are and what you do.
Yeah, so Johnny Thorson, I'm with Spot Nana, a new travel tech startup that was announced to the industry last week. I joined them in June this year. I have the battle scars of my body of being in travel tech since the late 90s. And it's fascinating to see in a number of ways how little has happened since we saw online booking engines arrive on the scene. And that led to me giving a speech in 2017. At the time I was with Messi, an AI chat startup that got acquired by Amex. I talked about how we were approaching a point in time where the days of products would end and we would enter a new kind of cycle of microservices. Services that are designed to do one thing extremely well, but also designed to connect with other services. And if you go down that path and you start thinking about what that can mean, then we have a lot of products in the travel industry today that potentially will become obsolete. The biggest one, the PNR. All products in this industry is built on a kind of non-digital capability with 200 lines of free text. Imagine if that free text becomes digital. So to me, that's what microservices means. Move away from an analog world and make digital automation and intelligent service delivery possible for a buyer who can decide at a literally click of a button, I'm changing from this to that, and I'm live now.
Okay. That's a preview of our entire thing.
I'm passionate about this one.
Passionate about this. All right, Guy, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us about your stake in this topic as well.
Thanks, Beth. My name's Guy Snelgar. I'm now an independent consultant working with Partnership Travel Consulting after 30 years in TMC's, GDS's corporate booking tool world, and spend a lot of my time now talking to corporate buyers and corporate clients who both are looking at TMCs to provide them with a range of technology services, but also more and more those now who are saying, no, actually, I don't want to be tied into that collective package of solutions. I want to be able to pick and choose best in class and build my own infrastructure, if you like, technology infrastructure. I have to say I'm not a big fan of the microservices engineer phrase because it makes it sound like it's a technical preserve, and I don't think it is. I think it's something potentially for all travel buyers to be thinking.
All right, very good. Thank you so much. And we'll go to our next, and it's Samit, right?
Yeah. Yes. Manoj. So hi.
Oh,
my name is Manoj from SalesRep. The concept of microservices is something my perspective is it's something we have already been used to. We all use iPhones or Google Android phones. I use an app for calendar. I use an app for email. I use an app for talking to people, WhatsApp, Slack. So they all know what we are talking about. They all interconnect. They all have access to the contact data. They all have access to your personal information. So essentially, the concept of microservices is not new. It just we are probably presenting it in a slightly different fashion. So we have built the product. Our logic is, if you're running a company, if you have different company teams operating on a platform, whatever the platform could be, you have your sales team using something, your operations team, your marketing team using something. Why don't you take travel and expenses into it? So this is a typical plug and play, and which is what we're going to talk about today. That's my topic.
Thank you. And Samit, sorry about that.
Hi, my name is Samit Khandeparkar. I'm the Global Head of Travel and Meetings for Springer Nature. For me, I'm very passionate about digital travel. I had a historic OBT. Still, I used to do about 89 to 91% of online adoption, but a lot of complaints, a lot of queries. From unmanaged, I've gone to a managed program, and I think I was the first travel manager who gave a enterprise account lock, stock, barrel to TripActions. Early this year, when nobody was talking about digital travel, and I will emphasize why I did that later.
Okay, very good. Well, there's a lot to talk about here. But the first thing I would like to do is ask our audience a question. And that is, and we're just going to do a raise of hands, please. Why are you attending this panel? And I got to put my eyes on. So raise your hand if this applies to you. I want to understand what microservice strategy is. Just we'll review. I understand the microservices strategy, but I want to understand the pros and cons. Don't vote yet. I'm leaning towards a microservices strategy, and I want to know others' experiences and challenges with it. Or I'm executing microservices strategy now and want to hear from the experts. So, number one, if you just want to understand what microservices are, raise your hand. Oh, lots of those. Okay. And if you understand that strategy but want to understand the pros and cons, and you can vote twice. Okay. I'm leaning towards a microservices strategy, and I want to know others' experiences and challenges. Adventurer here. I'm executing a microservices strategy now and want to hear from the experts. Oh, okay. All right. We got a little of everything, but a lot of education to happen here. So let's get started. You gave us kind of a preview, Johnny, when you were introducing yourself. So I want to ask about the basics here, and maybe not hear from Johnny first. Maybe someone else could tell us. Describe the microservices strategy in business travel sort of in your own words. And I'd like to at least have a buyer and a supplier do this. So help me. Who would like to volunteer? Catherine, I leaned on you before to do that. So why don't you give it a whirl?
No, so I think like we said before, it's a kind of plug and play environment, and really go out and look at the different content providers you need, the different technology you need, bring them all together, put them in an environment, put some platform over on top as a user experience for the traveler. So you can really in the background manage all of the complexity of the changing environment, of the GDS, the NDC, whatever else is out there. Put your policy on top and really put preferencing and best choices in front of the traveler. So he has the trust in the system that he gets the best kind of content and he knows what to book without needing to check outside and constantly compare, is all the content available? What is the policy? How does this work? And without having to understand the continuous changing complexity in the background that is up for us as a buyer and our suppliers to manage. And then as Tommy said rightfully also to be able to change in the background if something better comes along, and we see a lot of startups coming in the industry, and sometimes there's just a new great idea coming out that you should be able to plug in the back without the traveler ever seeing that you're changing the pipelines. And
if I can just dig in just a little bit on that. So what is the role of the travel manager? Do you become sort of a technology sourcing expert, or is it the connect? You shook your head. What role do you play? You identify what is needed, and then how do you then become that engineer? You bring it up that it sounds like a technical position. Do you think it's a technical position?
I think it's not, because I mean, already now we have this kind of that split of the travel buyer and the travel manager, right? It's already a very defined scope of one is the sourcing expert, and being a sourcing expert means I understand the market, I know who the key players are, I know the content, I know how pricing financial models work, and I bring that into my system to then provide the best-in-class content for my population.
Right.
And the travel manager task is kind of managing the whole engagement, communication, making sure people are aware, helping them out if something goes wrong, doing escalations on supplier management. So these two teams already internally, they work very closely together. So I think the structure exists. It's just going that next step of being brave enough to step out the historic TMC setup and doing it.
Right. So does this mean, I'm not trying to put you on the spot, does this mean kind of unwinding to a certain extent from your TMC, or just sort of taking back control so they aren't having the sort of overarching control of your program? You still need a TMC, I presume.
I think there's many options around that, and I think the TMC can continue to play a role because there's a lot of value added TMC brings. But I think what we need more, and we start seeing that, is the TMC opening up a bit more, rather than them doing it all and owning it all. Is to create this new sort of governance structure where overall I want to be in control. We buyers, we all want to be in control. That's part of our job description, be in control. But the TMC, I think, has a place to play as an interface, bringing things in, but bringing things in that I choose to bring in.
Okay, great. That's a great summary. Would anyone like to add to what Katharina just described?
So I agree with Katharina. If you take it as a digital solution or a IT solution, no. Because if a IT sourcing guy will like the product, but does he understand point of sale? Does he understand payments? Does he understand P&R? Does he understand data? No, they don't understand. A sourcing guy, IT sourcing guy will choose any product. They will like the look and feel and how does the product work. So you need a mix of both. You need to be a very good, solid travel manager to understand the technology, if it's going to work for you or not work for you.
That is correct. All right. So let's go to our next question, and that is, what is it? I can't see. Yeah, so actually we answered kind of the next question, which was about, is it about control? What is the role of the TMC in this world? Are there alternative names that we might describe this concept better? Do you have one, Guy?
Yeah, and it kind of expands the concept out a little bit. And I think just to touch on the point that Katharina made, it is still travel management. You still need a travel manager. You still need to understand what it is you want from your travel program and what's driving it. And as well as the technology part, and obviously the technology and the microservices is all important, it can cover the whole scope of everything from the front-end point of sale technology, the content pipes that you're getting, but right through potentially to the fulfillment and who's doing your 24-hour, and this idea of almost having a jigsaw and you being able to assemble the different components and choose where you source. Some may be from your TMC, some may not. So we talk about this idea of kind of sort of build your own travel program, build your own bundle, where you literally go through and you have the ability to pick and choose the elements that work best for you. And for some organizations, that could be still working very closely with a TMC and picking some crucial pieces of technology that are fundamental. For others, you can go all the way down the line and bring in your own travel people, effectively rent an IR to issue your own tickets if you want to. That probably is the extreme end of the scale for some, the old CTD model that we're familiar with.
Exactly.
But for others, there are, and more TMCs, I think, are becoming flexible to that. Not all, but more are becoming flexible to that, and the idea that actually they will provide the services that you ask for, as opposed to determining all of the services that you should have based on their criteria, sometimes not necessarily your own.
Thank you. I'm going to take Manoj and Johnny and ask you a little bit of a different question. So what are the obstacles to doing what our other three panelists have described? So Johnny, I'll go to you first, and then Manoj, I'll take you second.
So first, I just want to add two other words instead of engineer. You could call it architect or designer.
Okay.
Because this is about being creative with a lot of capabilities. Engineering is mostly about building.
Right.
So to me, at least, I think it's not an engineering term. But the complexities for doing this is that the entire ecosystem today is built around this static environment called the PNR. And if you don't know, 2 years ago at an IATA conference, United Airlines and Lufthansa both publicly stated that they had tested internally how many systems they had that touched a PNR in the lifetime from booking to boarding. 70. So the airline themselves have 70 systems they maintain to travel or to keep people traveling. Then we add the corporate travel tech stack on top, maintained by the TMCs. And then when the corporate buyers want to add additional third-party solutions, and all of this rely around this kind of unstructured PNR queuing method, which is horrible inefficient, right? So you can call it what you want. That old stack cannot survive and support innovation. So buyers will have to make a decision. Do I want to keep putting lipstick on the pig until it will not stick anymore? Or do I actually want to go into a new world and start building and designing there?
Okay. Now, it's my understanding, and this may be too limited, but I'm going to say it as an overall. But in order to service a booking through your TMC, they service it on that PNR. So
Yeah.
does this then mean that TMCs have to fundamentally change in order to operate in the world of microservices?
Yeah, it does, because you cannot create intelligent microservices on unstructured data. It's scraping. It's, it should be in line 12 that the corporate cost center code is placed. If
Right.
that agent was new, did not know the format, it might be in line 13.
Right.
And it ends up being a credit note, and somebody has to manually do a reconciliation task at the credit card level 2 months later. All because there was no structure to begin with.
Okay. So
And
To be
it's
fair,
just-
well, what I'd say, there are TMCs that have already gone down that road.
yes, there are.
Yep.
There are those who are their booking record, if you
Right.
like, their single point of truth is not the PNR.
Right,
The
right,
PNR is
It's
the locator used
part
by
of
one
it.
stream of
Yeah.
content, and other streams of content will provide something else.
Right.
And some, a few years ago decided we want to, because I agree with John, the PNR is something from the 1970s and beyond.
Yes.
It is limited. So there are some who've already gone down that road, and others who are starting to look at it beyond that. The PNR just serves a particular function for a particular type of content.
So
But then to your point, Guy, if they move to a new platform, if that's not open,
Oh, absolutely.
then
Some chat, yeah,
you do not have a microservices environment. You just have a new walled garden.
yeah.
right. So it has to be an opening up, not just a shift.
Yeah.
So did you have something you
I
wanted
do-
to
I
add, Manoj?
I certainly do.
I'm sure
I
you
think we
do.
have, one of the major challenges that we have and we'll still have, just a simple example, we've been talking about NDC for the last, how many years, I can't remember.
Right.
12.
Just as a
at
background.
least 10.
Yeah, purely, so I'm a travel outsider, so I moved into travel 2 years ago. Before this, I'm just a purely consumer of, I'm all my life I've been building enterprise solutions for in products and services. The global distribution systems, again, I have nothing against any of these I'm talking about. It's purely my perspective. The global distribution systems, GDSs that we have, the three of them, were originally invented back in, like you said, in 70s, purely at the time of what we call as a mainframes, where there was not personal. There was one central hub, and then we had different terminals which had the green screens. Majority of you'd still remember, lots of TMCs and operators are still using green screens. If you go to a travel booking a terminal at for United, Southwest, you're still going to see the green screens, and I don't understand. I don't have a clue of what that is. So the problem we have is we have all of these, not just the travel the TMC companies, but also the booking engines which are behind all of it. Even the airline. So again, if you look at it, the problem goes much deeper than what we think it is. It's not just on the surface. So now lots of these have to change, and the problem with the PNR is still there. Like we have our own booking engine. Again, we are built on the existing infrastructure, but we have our own record of what the traveler does, and we simply map our own reference to the PNR reference, because sometimes it was too unstructured. We couldn't do nothing with the data, literally nothing. It was quite a problem. So the challenge is not just that. If you want to go to a reality where you have a list of options or check boxes you need to select, and say, okay, hey, I want A, B, and C to work together, or A, B, and D to work together. The back-end systems do not support it today, so it's going to be a much bigger change than we all are talking about. But we have to, it's basically who's trying to build the cat. So we got to start somewhere.
Would you like to add something, Sammy? You mentioned that
I'm not even going to that. I want a solution which works for me. You do whatever you want to do in the backend.
Yeah.
I want a OBT which has a single look and feel, a single global profile. I don't want to go in country-wise setup. I want my content to be agnostic. I want a traveler from UK sitting in UK booking a Deutsche Bahn ticket in Germany.
Yeah.
Though he's traveling on a flight to Frankfurt, we have 17 offices in Germany. I don't want him to call the offline team. That is what I'm looking out for.
Okay. All right. So, this conversation could go in so many different directions. So I want to go to Manoj for 1 second. I know you just spoke, but I'd like to go back to you. So there's a lot of different kind of flavors of microservices that we have represented here. So I understand that you kind of believe there is a trend that will be for corporates to locate their travel management technology within their other enterprise systems.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit more about that and what would need to happen for that to actually occur.
Definitely. I think I've been and I'm always a supporter of a platform play. Essentially, we look at so we in a company, the travelers are going to be in one of the categories. You're probably from marketing, you're from sales, you're from operations, you're from IT. It doesn't matter. You're from customer support. So these are different business functions. You're using travel as a siloed system. I mean, even today, majority of us are flipping up a phone or going online into a specific portal that does travel and nothing but travel. Now, apart from that, there is a ream of information which is already in the systems you're using. If you're marketing, you're using something to manage your campaign. Your salespeople, you're using something to manage your pipeline. Your customer support, you're managing something. You're using a solution to manage your customers. It could be anything. It could be Salesforce, Oracle, SAP. It doesn't matter what it is. You're using some system. The belief which I have and the argument is, now there should be a conglomeration of all this data. Now we have the first problem where the traveler information itself is not integrated, and then we have this dispersed information. Now I'm trying to take it back to your company information, into your financial data, into your sales data, into your marketing data. You know who your customer is. You know why you're traveling. So the belief is, all of these do get bundled into what is into a platform. So you have, as a large company, you have 10,000 employees, you have an enterprise solution in your company. Why shouldn't travel exist as a component on that same platform? Why do you have to use it separate, where end of 1 month, end of 1 quarter, you have you import a report for the 20,000 tickets you've booked or 20,000 travelers that you have in the company? You have a 2-page report that exactly says what data has been, how much we have spent, and this basically goes off as a line item in your operations budget. I believe that should not be the case. You need to have more integration with the data between what you're using on a day-to-day basis and your travel data.
Is this something our buyers think about?
Yeah, because I think that's just one additional module to the overall patchwork of systems, right?
Okay.
And as also with the integration of all the virtual tools. Now we're just coming out of a huge crisis where everything was virtual. We're going to go back to travel, but we're not going to go full blown back to what we did before. We're going to go somewhere in the middle. So ideally, we want all of these things to merge, to also give people full visibility of what other options are there. Do I really need to travel, or can I use that great new technology we have internally to go all virtual? So I think it needs to go all together, and it needs to be real time. I don't ever want to have reports anymore a month later, 25 days before closing. No, everything needs to be real time.
Right.
Real time, predictive, and targeted information. That's the other thing. We sit on so much information, and it's all great for us as travel buyers, but for my audience, everybody needs different pieces of the pie. So it needs to be structured to what they need to see at the time they need to see it, so it's actionable and not post the facts.
Yeah. Do you have anything you'd like to add to that?
So when I moved to this platform, I set the access different managers and different level of C-level should have, and they have real-time data.
Yeah.
They don't need to come to me or the TMC.
But only travel data. It's not integrated.
Travel
Okay.
data.
Yeah. Do you see a future where it would integrate with other enterprise systems in a way where that data could play together?
I would need to speak to my GDPR team first.
Well, you give a very, you bring up a very important topic. And I think it's a very important topic that applies to microservices overall. If a travel manager or sourcing decides they're going to go down this path and they're going to source each of these different components to bring it into a new ecosystem that they're going to put together themselves, do they then need individual approval and consecration from their InfoSec and privacy people, legal, in their companies? Do you?
So this is one of the biggest opportunity areas for the industry, right?
Okay.
Today we have a model where the profile data constantly gets pushed to a lot of legacy systems because, again, that's how we built it. If you take a step back, then I'm assuming a corporate buyer very soon will say, my HR data will never leave the house. You will have a token access. In other words, you'll have a digital key that can be stored in other systems. And now there's suddenly no data privacy issues because the digital key is the only thing that lives outside the corporate HR wall. And now enterprise RT can allow services to be activated without even looking at data privacy concerns. It doesn't exist anymore. The digital key will be managed by the corporation and the individual traveler. So the traveler will have certain elements that they control access to, mostly aimed at the supplier community. So you can give me services in return for me giving you access to me, and the corporate will have control of the corporate data elements that are critical for them. And there will be no data stored anywhere outside the house.
I love talking to
I
you,
like that.
Johnny.
Yeah, I like that
Yeah,
too.
but I never can know what's 10 years from now and what's today because you live 10 years from now.
I think that is a good point.
I think this is 3 to 5 years max. It's already happening in a few corporations right now.
Yeah.
Because corporate IT is driving it.
I think what you say, Johnny, I mean, it is futuristic for business travel, but this is day to day on the current credit card
Exactly.
payment systems.
Yeah, exactly.
No travel provider, including us and a majority of them, we don't store the credit card on our own systems. We do what is called as a tokenized vault access. So it basically sits on Stripe or Braintree or PayPal, one of the payment providers. We simply have a token which technically determines. So even if somebody steals the token is tied to us as a company, and like in this case, you as a company. Even if I get access to the token, I can't do nothing with
Exactly.
it. Yeah.
Yep.
I think back to your question though, in practical terms, and Johnny's absolutely right, but yes, it is down the road.
It is.
And we are in a world today where those
Right.
questions still exist about
Right,
GDPR
and we have to
info
answer
security.
them, and we have to then
Yeah.
push for the changes that would make
Yeah.
those things then happen.
But what I would say is one of the changes that we've seen is that obviously things like corporate booking tools, people have been contracting with those directly for a long time. The thing that's become more recent is actually owning those profile tools, the current generation
Yeah,
of
yeah,
profile
yeah,
tools,
yeah.
admittedly. And a lot of that has come from that need for reassurance about the data. Because to be fair, companies in RFPs were asking those InfoSec questions of the TMC
Yes.
already.
Yes.
But if I'm honest, there was not always absolute confidence in the answer they're getting. And you've seen them written in RFPs. Where are your profile data held? Oh, we use this profile system and they're hosted in Germany. Oh, great, it's in Europe. Yeah, but we're using Sabre as a GDS, so actually
It
it's
has
being
to
built
come
back in the
there,
States. You don't get the full picture. So actually, one of the things that is driving this is corporate organisations saying we want to be certain about this. We want to know. We want to have that direct relationship. We want to be able to ask the questions directly and know what the data is and where we are letting it go to, as opposed to kind of passing that off to someone else and saying you manage all that for us.
And you want to do that with each technology provider that you are.
That is going to
Interacting
affect your
with.
data. Absolutely, yeah. Well, in the same way as it does now, except the TMC answers all those questions on behalf of the various technology companies that sit behind.
Correct. And I will just say this. When I talk to buyers, many, many, many buyers, this is where the holdup is. I can't get through InfoSec.
Yep.
When I work with my TMC and they provide the bundles or the modules through the TMC, then I don't have to get additional approvals. But what you're saying is that's a mistake because you don't have full visibility through the TMC. So the issue of privacy is actually going to accelerate our move to microservices. Is that what I'm hearing?
Ask yourself this question if you're a buyer. If you suddenly are exposed to a solution in the market that opens up by saying, we will not store your profile data, are you going to turn around? That's not for me. I really love my data going in uncontrolled ways. Or are you going to say, this is the beginning of my future program. I'm going to find suppliers that will support this new mindset. And it's just like any other service, right? When fast boarding evolved with biometrics, people will gravitate toward it. Most people. A few will stay in the old world, and that's okay. And they will get inferior service over time because investment will go to the new world. And this is coming to a platform near you very soon. It's already happening in your companies with your own products to your customers. Corporate IT is working on this. Go and find them, talk to them. They get excited.
Yeah.
But I think you're right, Beth. I think it used to be seen as an easy option.
Right.
TMC has said, yes, everything's okay. I can tick the
Yeah.
box in the RFP. I don't have to
Right.
worry about
I
it.
don't
What's
have to do
happening
this
now
anymore.
is corporate InfoSec coming back and saying, no, I know you've ticked the RFP, but I want to know about this. And you're having to, actually, sometimes in the middle of the implementation,
then
you're having to go
revisit.
back and saying, oh no, I've been asked to find out this. So
And your
the
clients are
simple, oh, it's
experiencing
all
that.
fine,
Yeah.
and you can just tick it and move on with your RFP. That we're past that now. People
Okay.
want detail, and
Okay.
and that does happen. Yeah, I know a number of a couple I can think of in the last year where you've got right through to virtually kick off, and someone from corporate IT has gone,
Backtrack.
just
Yeah.
that bit of the system though, didn't see any information, and
Right.
everything stops. And so that is
Interesting.
that's inevitably where we're going, and that's what's driving a lot of these conversations.
That's interesting because I haven't had that response in the past. It was just in order to move anything quickly, you have to kind of partner with your TMC because that's the path of least resistance within their own company as well. So I actually want to stop the conversation here for a minute and ask our audience, open for questions. We've said a lot of words up here. Are there any questions from the audience that you'd like to ask the panel at this point? No? Really? You know everything? Yeah, gotcha.
Do you think it's as simple as asking individual companies to upgrade their software and a lot of these tools that are going to enable this kind of technology require quite a large amount of investment? But talking about the GDS, for example, across borders, especially in a kind of post-COVID world, we're already finding how complicated it is to have all these different systems in place to try and solve solutions, whereas the P&R is at least an international standard. So how complicated is that to get to a stage where we replace the kind of international standard? Oh, thank you. International standard with something else, if that makes sense. I hope you could hear that question.
Yeah,
Yeah, we
fine.
did.
Okay, do you want to?
Is there,
I'm sure
is there
you have your
another
list on it.
international
Go.
standard that we're moving towards, away from the PNR, but something that's more
I
inclusive?
think you make a very good point, David, which is, and let's be honest, the travel industry is not cutting edge technology. We lag behind, and we take a long time to get anything, and anything that requires anything universal to be agreed that we all work on, frankly, is quite aspirational at times. So although I agree with Johnny's vision, I think the reality for quite a long time is actually going to still be a little bit of a patchwork. And it is going to take a wrench to break away from the PNR. I do think we are seeing moves towards that. I think it will be slow. I think inevitably it's still, albeit very flat functionality. The job it does very well, and has done very well for a long time, and it is very flat in functionality, and it is very basic, it's very limited to what you can do, but it handles huge volumes and has done for a long time, and everyone's got systems that work with it, and there's a little bit of like, oh, we don't need to fix that bit. So I think change will be slow coming, and I think it will be many years while we're still working with, as we have done. And you know, you go to a corporate booking tool now, and it's bringing content from NDC, and it's bringing content from low-cost carriers, and it's bringing content from GDS, and we hopefully less than we used to. We spend a lot of time wailing and gnashing our teeth saying, oh, it's so difficult, we've got to do that, you can't do that with that, you can only do that if it comes through that channel, and you can't have that on the online app, you can only have that if you phone the branch, all that stuff. Honestly, corporate travel buyers don't care. I don't care what NDC certification, what schema this airline's on. Can I get the content I need? And we love talking about this because a lot of us are from a technical background. We find it tragically interesting. But for corporate travel buyers, while the stuff that goes on behind the scenes, the stuff that is happening is really interesting, there is an element, that's exactly as Sam said, give me something that will work. And actually, if it will work using old technology, great. If it will work using a mixture of old technology and bits of new technology, as I can plug those in, great. But it's going to always be a bit of a patchwork.
I think there's hope. If I look at least some of the meetings I've had with suppliers the last few months, because the airlines in particular have realized, coming out of COVID, this is their reset opportunity. They will never have a better chance to do it. And it looks like a number of the airlines are actually ready to think in new ways. And guess what? They hate the PNR just as much as the other side.
Yes, they do.
There's no love there. And therefore, they are now stuck in a problem. They've lost, on average, a third to half of their IT resources during COVID. People have left the airline tech department. They have to work with external parties, so they are ready to play. And all they need are buyers that are ready to experiment together. And that's new. The airlines were not thinking like this pre-COVID. They were having great times. But
Okay.
now they need improvement.
Let's have a comment from Manoj, and then I want to go
Definitely.
to the two buyers.
I think my thinking is, if, say, for example, day one we wake up, all the systems in the world break, probably within 3 months we'll have this new technology implemented. Purely because it's the reality, the harsh reality of where we are. The last 18 months there's been literally zero travel. We could have, in hindsight, that would have been a great time to upgrade all the system. That didn't happen. And what is not broken, don't fix it. That's the logic. And again, we have been, I'm sorry, I keep going back to this. I wasn't even born in 1970s, but from 1970s, we are still riding on the same airline technology. And again, so the thing is, right, as much as we all aspire, we all want it, but it's going to be slow, really slow.
Yeah.
So if all the technology does break in the next 3 months, we're going to know who to come looking
Right.
for.
We'll, we'll call you.
Someone's pulled a plug out.
Someone's pulled a plug out of it, yeah.
All right. Let's go to the two buyers because I want to get into a little bit of detail of what you're actually doing in your own program. So we're going to start with you, Salman. You have gone a little bit down the other road. Now, you to your point, the PNR may not be the central reference point for what you're working on with, and I'm just going to say it's Trip Actions. Is that correct? Yeah. Okay. So tell us why you went all in with a single provider, but what your criteria were for, making that the provider that works for you.
So two things. One day I get a call from CEO 2 years back. He's in US. He has 3 travel bookers in 3 different locations. Because he's sitting in NL, he's in US and his PA in US had to call NL. And there was some problem going in Netherlands. And the travel agent couldn't support me.
Right.
So he asked me one single question. Can you get me a travel service provider who does a single profiling and a single implementation, not a country implementation? He said, can you give all my travelers same look and feel, same agnostic content? Can you do that? 2 years back, when I started the journey, I had Agencia, good and bad reviews, no comments, but they are country-wide setup. Travel Perk, good company. If you want to try any buyers here, very transparent, but they said they can't support an enterprise client because I had some must-haves. Trip Actions was not in the picture, came in the picture at the last moment, and I ticked all the boxes. Also, we travel managers have made our travel program complex. I've broken it down into 3 travelers: board members, featured travelers, and general travelers. All the general travelers have to book their travel online. The board members and featured travelers, the who's who, they can call the offline support, and we have given them chance because their travel is complex and you don't expect a VP or a CEO to book his own travel, and that's worked out wonder for me.
Okay.
I have a single TMC, a single OBT, and they own the platform. I again don't want the disconnect. If you're on a direct deal with some of the historic OBTs, they will say, oh, we are just a platform provider. You go and speak to the TMC. The TMC will say, oh, sorry, you have a direct deal. You manage it. I don't want that.
So what if you want something they don't have?
So with these new 2 players, if it's a real must-have and if they don't have in the platform, it's a 90 days turnaround time for them. And it's in my contract.
Oh, get it in the contract.
It should not be a wish list. It should be a must-have. That is, it is required for my travelers and for me as a travel manager. And they have delivered couple of. We started implementation in April. We have done 45 countries in 2 months.
That's pretty good. Katharina, why does that not work for you?
So we're in a similar setup. So we're one of the companies you quoted earlier. We have a global setup as well. We have in I think 95% of my markets, I have the same booking tool, the same engine. So it's the same policy setup. There's some local content issues. Rail remains an issue.
Right.
No hidden agenda
Yeah.
there. And we're working on, and we have some contracts as well on product developments where we put forward things that we need. We're a consulting business. We work on project code. With project code, you don't travel. So all these things, we try to jointly work to make things improve and stay up to date with what's happening in the market. At the same time, I think COVID was a good moment as well for us to check back and reevaluate what else has changed out there, looking at some of the new players, looking at some of the existing players and how they're advancing, and looking at some of these new platform enablers of how can I best plug and play things, and maybe the things that I don't have a solution for with my TMC, how can I get this externally put it in there, but again, make it seamless for the travelers. I don't want them to know it's coming from 5 different sources.
Right.
I just want it to be there. So that's we're working on that. And one thing we did is just, and we're still working on as well, is taking ownership of our data again. I don't want all these different sources of here's the dashboard and here's another dashboard. I want dashboards, but I want my own dashboards. And ideally I want them real time. And that's something we continue working on, but I think that's powerful to have, is to be able to own your own information, and be able to slice and dice it the way you need it. Because again, every business is different as well.
Right. So what is the response from your partners, like your TMC, when you're saying, well, I just want you to be one of these different providers in my ecosystem, and I need you to be able to work with and connect through to these new players that I'm bringing in? What's the response?
It used to be very closed. It used to be a very closed environment of we're trying to develop all ourselves. We can do it jointly. And I can see them now opening up to saying, maybe if we don't have the in-house capability, let's stop trying to reinvent the wheel ourselves. Right. Let's look outside who's already there, and let's see how we can partner together. So I can see the system opening up more and more on that, which is great.
And do you think that that's a function of your Capgemini? They're opening it up for you, or that they are...
Well, I always hope it's just me opening these things up, but I think really it's a combination of the environment. And the environment has changed.
Right.
COVID has changed things. The requirements are different. Maybe our power as a buyer is different, but I don't want to play that way. I want to play on a partnership approach, trying to be transparent, and here's what we need. Here's where you really failed us in the past. Here's what we see your competition has. And by the way, I expect you to be on top of your competition. Not me looking up at BTN, look, this news announcement of a booking tool. Right. Where are you? It needs to be more proactive. So I can have the assurance as well that you're on top of your game, and I don't have to chase you. So I think that's evolving. And I can see a lot more open conversation happening as well. And I think it's good for us as an ecosystem as well to have more conversation, not just one-on-one, but bring multiple partners in the room. And we can sign a lot of NDAs if you need to, but there's certain things like P&R, I think we can all talk about it. Right. There's nothing hidden behind it. So let's talk, and let's see how we can all help push things forward. And it's important to have a vision. And it's important. I like that you're 10 years ahead. But I think
that wasn't a negative.
But we all need that to know the sort of baby steps to take. Because we cannot wait until the full solution is there and then say, now I jump ships because now it's there. I think we need to be part of the solution and go step by step, and also test things out and be brave enough to allow ourselves to fail sometimes, but that will get us there at the end. Right.
And being brave enough to allow yourself to fail, and being that sort of adventurous buyer, like our friend in the front row here. How do you sell it internally to start to get that ball rolling? And I'm going to come to you in a minute, Guy, because I've got another question for you. But how do you sell it internally to make these things start to happen?
So I had one shot. My CPO told me, we are during COVID and you have one shot. So get everything right.
Don't fail.
Don't fail. And the numbers, and test the system enough. What we have done is, we have done a lot. My airlines credits are automated. I get all the COVID information in a single source. I don't work out of office hours. Out of office hours is 365 days, chat, email, phone. I am on a trip fee. So my travelers, from the time they book, they leave their door, till they come back, I pay a single trip fee, where I had a bucket list of 70 transaction fees. Now at a click of a button, I can get how much fees I have paid to my travel agency.
Johnny, you're nodding your head. Is that what Spotnana is doing? Trip fee?
We're going down that consumption-based road, right, where you only pay for what you consume. And pricing models will become incredibly transparent.
Right.
I think another interesting option is to look at, pay per minute. So whenever there's human support involved, you literally pay per minute.
Okay.
And you pre-buy minutes, just like in the old mobile world, in the early days of mobile networks, right? So why not have a pre-negotiated price per minute of human consulting services? And then an incredible low cost for anything that's automated. Because there should be no human involvement in automation.
So
Katharina
I'm
is
never
saying, no,
gonna
don't
pay-
charge me
I'm-
for the
yeah.
minute.
I'm never going to pay for minutes. But I expect people to be quick and to the point. So but that's a different discussion. But I think an important point also is to, because in travel we touch so many different function stakeholders, is to bring everybody in early on and not when you come the solution, but bring them in as we build out what's the problem here. What are we trying to solve?
Right.
And agree on what the issue is. And we've recently done it and just rebuilding our travel policy. We completely rewrote the policy, building sustainability in it and all of that. And we did so by having a workshop with all functions. We brought security in, finance, we brought some people from our key travelers in, obviously procurement and travel. And we all virtually sat together and we thought through what do we have today, what's not working,
Right.
what can we do in the future, and what's the vision. And we quickly realized that there's things we'd like to do, but we're not there.
You have to do other things.
We have to do the
first.
steps. So we can only go so far right now.
Right.
But then we all agreed on the solution. And honestly, it was the smoothest transition to the Works Council I've ever had. Because everybody was on board from the
Right.
very beginning.
Right.
It was signed off and we're good. And that's the same thing we need to do, I think, in reinventing, re-engineering this whole travel spectrum, is bringing everybody in early. And everybody agree that from a security perspective, from a finance perspective, from an HR perspective, this is why I need this change, and I'm good with it. And then you go.
All right, Guy, I promised you a question. Do you see more buyers in your consulting practice coming and trying to go down these same roads? Same concerns, right? We have two different buyers. One who is putting together an ecosystem on her own, obviously with the team, and another who has gone with a next-gen provider to sort of approximate that as much as possible. How many buyers are looking for that new way? And they're coming to you, and what are they asking for?
I think we certainly are seeing more buyers kind of having their eyes open to it and wanting to have that discussion. We're also seeing an increasing number who come. And to be honest, it's not the right solution for everyone. And
Right.
as you said,
Right.
Samit and Katharina have kind of attacked a similar problem in different ways, and they're both completely valid.
Sure.
What we are getting more of is people who are saying, well, I really like this, and I really like this, and I really like this, but I don't like this. And I've been told this from a TMC, or I'd like to do that, I'd like to do that, but if I work with that, I can't do that. And they're constrained. And are maybe looking to go into a TMC RFP, but the brief that they're laying out has some fundamental issues and challenges which come from having a one-stop shop for everything. And it's when you sit down and talk through with them, and find out what those issues are, and you start to raise the possibility, well, you could do that separately. Then the conversation gets
Like,
interesting.
what else can I do separately?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And then how far you go down that road is different for every client. For some, it is literally as simple as, well, okay, why don't you choose your own booking tool? That's the bit most of your users see. It's the bit which could be agnostic from a TMC. It's the bit which will give you some stability if you wanted to change TMC load. And it's probably the most basic bit to implement, because it's been direct relationships have been going on for a while. And then as you follow through that with profiles and reporting and GDS agreements, and then potentially other services that you want to plug in, having your own hotel commission capture.
Right. But
There's
so
also
is this
and
just
so
the new CTD? Like, that's what I'm hearing you say.
I'm kind of reluctant to say that, because I don't think it's one thing.
Yeah.
I don't think one thing. I think it is a general openness
Okay.
to the ability. I think it's more of a sliding scale. So whereas it used to be black and white. You either had TMC or you were CTD. And then there was some grey in the middle. Actually, what we're seeing now is that you can, and over a period of time, you can start to pick out those services, the ones that hurt most. So like the dashboards or the reporting. What's the thing that's hurting in your business? Is the reporting. Okay, we can tackle that. And it's actually becoming something which then evolves from one end of the scale slowly towards the other, rather than it being this is what I want to do. The conversation starts as a simple one, and actually then kind of goes and explores different, and sometimes comes back again. Sometimes you explore things, we could do this, we could do that, you could source that directly, and then you look at it, okay, but that's going to require some resource, and it's going to require doing things a different way, and actually I think I'll go back to this. But the openness to have that conversation and to explore things, and also for some of the suppliers to be prepared to have that conversation, because a lot of the travel technology suppliers historically have been very good at talking TMC language and travel language, but not necessarily very good at talking corporate language, and so have made it difficult for corporate buyers to talk to them. Again, that is something which I think we're seeing evolving and changing as well, and understanding how that conversation needs to happen.
I'm curious, Katharina, do you have internal profile technology? Have you done profiles?
We're doing HR data feed.
Okay.
The
Okay.
very
Okay.
classic way.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. Got it. All right. I'm going to pause for a minute. Oh, that's just why I paused. You have a question.
Hi there. Sarah Wilson, ATG UK.
I think the mic is coming your way.
Thank you. Hello, Sarah. Is it on? Hello?
Yeah, there you
Yep.
go.
Okay. Sarah Wilson, ATG UK. Thank you to all the panel. Very interesting looking at or hearing about what you're looking for. My question is for Samit. You referred at the beginning, I think, about having this sort of global same look and feel single sign-on solution for technology. And I think, but I may have been mistaken, I think you referred to having the ability for perhaps a travel manager to be able to book a ticket in Frankfurt for a traveller from the UK or elsewhere, so cross-border. How does that work, or just to the panel, if I'm correct, is that feasible with the way that the airlines work and the markets and IATA and BSP? Is that now feasible?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And has been for some time, to be honest.
Even with
even with the legacy, even with the legacy, even with a lot of the legacy corporate cultures, there are still, as always, some hoops you have to jump through in the background to
Yeah.
make sure that the supplier sees the request coming in a certain way. But yeah, you can structure systems which effectively can pick up the content from wherever you need to pick up the content from, and where the booker is sitting or where the traveller is sitting.
So regardless
is
of where the booker
independent.
sits or where the ticket is issued, regardless of where the traveller is,
Correct.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
all
Yeah.
over.
Yeah.
And,
Okay.
and just to take it one step further, right now, when you talk to the airlines, their dream world is a price that Google cannot find.
I didn't quite hear you, I'm sorry.
The airlines are right now focusing on how can I create a pricing distribution model where the price cannot be found by Google.
Ah,
Because that's the beginning of a new world where they can truly provide corporate unique pricing, knowing that it cannot be broken or misused by anybody else. And it's back to, you cannot do that the old way. And airlines are now investing in making this possible. And this is the big moment of truth, right? Is a buyer going to say, I don't think I want that? Of course not. You're going to say, I will find a way of taking advantage of that new capability. And that can be everything from, accelerated refund processing. It can be, converting refunds into new loyalty value. It can be a lot of creative things. But it all starts with changing the way you get to the content and what you do with it.
look forward to hearing from you on that, Guy.
We'll talk later, Sarah. We'll talk later.
Thank you very much.
Okay, I want to just sweep the audience a little bit. Again, do we have other questions that have come up from this most recent segment of our talk? Nothing? Oh, yeah. We've got one over here.
Do I need the microphone?
I think we do, just to be official.
Thank you very much. My name is Hans Dahl. I'm from ITP Travel. A question. So I'm just setting up the situation. I think I hear everybody saying the technology is there. It would be amazing. We just had a COVID situation where we could have kicked off the new technology. It didn't happen. So if I'm looking at it, there's no interest from the major players in the market, the GDSs, the airlines. They might have interest in some areas to have a better solution, but in general they are not, because any future they would look into would be not as good for them as it is now. So all the major players would have to give way for smaller, more adaptable ones that had a better product. And if you make it more accessible, you would also be in a situation where the pricing wouldn't be dictated by them. So my question is, what would be the event that would make it possible? Because if COVID can't move the market, which it had the opportunity to do, as you said rightly, will it be a push and pull over the next many years, and as slowly as our business is with technology? Or can you imagine something happening either via governments, Europe, and so on? Or is there another event that would make this possible?
Probably
I
you
mean,
first.
it would be great if the GDSs collapsed, right? Because that would kind of cause instant innovation.
Some of them are in here, by the way. Just
I have no doubt, and clearly they have done everything right to prevent that from happening. So that's not an option. But I do think, I mean, trip actions, travel perks, the mega TMCs are all making significant investments. We are one of potentially several other new people coming onto the playground, and the cost of developing today is just so much lower than you can actually move incredibly fast. And I think that is the trigger moment. It will not be possible for them to say, I'm going to block this for 1 year. There will be a way around. I know Sales Trip have done an amazing job with their product in that environment that they sell to. And they don't need support from anybody else out there, right? So I think it's really up to the buyers to get in position to start thinking in new ways. And that will drive momentum. It will not be overnight, obviously.
I think just to add to what Johnny said, government regulations could drive this quicker. I completely forget the number of times passenger data has been stolen from Airlines A, Airlines B, Airlines C. I mean, this keeps on happening on a regular basis, and everybody says they have industry best practices for storing data. Now, this goes to a certain point, and then just like government started fining large enterprise companies, and they start fining airlines in hundreds of millions of dollars, then that's when the change is going to come from within. At that point, it's going to be cheaper to redesign system than to keep paying fines and keep the business running. So government regulations could drive changes much quickly. I mean, GDPR was a dream, I don't know, a decade ago, and then when it came in, everybody adapted to it. There's no, I mean, now you start something, GDPR is something that's inherent in our minds. The same thing with the California acts in the US for privacy. So, one of these acts, again, it comes in 2 or 3 major economies, then that will probably set the stone.
I think you use the phrase push and pull, and I think that has been the problem. There are all of the players in the current distribution chain all have their own, and it's not technology, it's commercial interests in keeping certain things where they are or changing things, and that's why we've seen what we've seen over the last few years with all those, and that will continue for a while. I think it will be led by the corporate buyers, because at the end of the day, TMCs want it one way and GDSs want it this way and airlines want it this way, and they're all fighting. Bottom line is, if the corporate buyers demand something, that's who they're all ultimately selling to, and that's where the change will be driven from, I think.
Right. I like that answer. We have one more question, and then we're going to have to wrap up. So you're a star. Let's go.
Thank you. It's Spencer from Troop Travel here. Really interesting discussion. Thanks very much. The talk about regulation there I thought was particularly pertinent. If you look at the finance world and what's happened off the back of the regulation in that industry with the Payment Services Directive that made all the bank account owners open up to the innovators in the industry. And I've been lobbying for a number of years now about a travel services directive to actually say to everyone, you've got to have an open system here, because that's the only thing that's going to really allow the true innovation and friction removal from the system. So just interested in everyone's thoughts on that.
I think they like it.
I could probably, so the financial services opening up, it's open banking integration that probably revolutionized lots of companies. And today, back then, again, I'm talking about from a really small startup, we can integrate with any bank in anywhere in the world without any without having been worrying about enterprise security, because we know, because of open banking regulation, there are players who have already integrated all the banks almost all over the world, and we get access to it. I'm hoping, sincerely, I think, Johnny, we're also counting on like what you guys are doing, something that opens up where it's basically a service that we can simply plug into, and then we can pick and choose what we want to access, and that is going to revolutionize things coming in the coming years, definitely.
That's great. Open travels here.
Open travels here.
All right. On that note, I want to do one more thing before we go, and I know we only have 30 seconds, so let's go fast. Second poll question, raise of hands. After listening to this panel, how do you feel about the future of microservices strategy and travel management? Number 1, it's clearly the best path to the future, and I'm ready to take this on. Yeah, let's go. Yes.
Okay.
It sounds like an important step to the future, and I want to learn more. Okay. It could be an improvement over current paradigms, but the effort is high, and I question how a company would move towards such a strategy. No one? Okay, then I won't have anyone for the rest. It sounds like limited improvement for too much effort. Nobody. All right.
You
Good job, guys. You sold them on it.
Everybody sign up and they get out, and then.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.